Okay, I decided to go ahead and start on the trunk while I have the car backed in before I turn it around. I've marked the center line of the holes here just to keep them in line. I've got to cut this area out, and I put two other marks just so that when I put a new plate in here, I may do both, but either way I got to have at least this one marked. So where these lines come back, if I put a new plate in, where they come back across, that's where the holes will have to be drilled. If I do one or both, that'll give me the marks to come back and add the holes back. Same thing here. I think these are okay. There's some rust on the inside of this panel, but I can put some coating on that just to stop it. It's just surface rust on the inside of the hole. But I'm going to grind all this away and see how much material I have to take off to get down to some good base metal. If I have to take too much off here, I'm going to cut this spot out too. I'm probably going to just go ahead and do both of these. I need to look back inside and see how bad this one is, but definitely cutting this out and possibly this rear one. This one's still good. It all depends on how much rust is on the top though. You can see where it's starting to form under the paint. Alright, I just decided to do the back one on here just to keep the piece as small as possible. I don't want to warp the trunk lid when I go to weld on it. That way I only have to weld really out in the open here on two sides. On this peak line here and along the edge, it's not going to be that big a deal. I cut through only the outside layer here. What I did was I scored it with the grinding wheel and went through and cut through all of this from here back and from about right here back. Just scored through it and then just pulled it up and wiggled it to break it off. Now I touched it right in there. That was actually with my file belt here. I was taking this and going in. After I cut it out, I'm here and cleaned up the corners with this. And I must have bumped it with that. But that's going to get coated anyway once I'm done. Now I just need to make a patch panel to match this that came out. You can see where I didn't cut all the way through the sides. Well, this back side here. Just cut through the outside layer and then cut through the other three and pulled it out. Just back and forth and broke it off. And make a patch for this. And I think over here looks alright, but I've got some rust pits in here. I'm going to take the file belt and grind through that, see if I can get through the rust down to some clean metal without making it too thin. If I have to go too far in here, I may have to cut this piece out too, but I'd rather not. I can put some hard fiberglass filler in there if I have to go down through a significant amount, but I don't want to thin it too much. This one is slightly dipped. I need to reach under here and tap that back up. I couldn't get to it earlier very well, but now that I've got a hole here, I can just pry along this back edge and lift it just a little bit. I'm going to make that patch and get everything set up to weld that in. I'm going to pull this off, clean up these edges, see if I can get a piece to sit right in there and get it held in place. Not sure how. I guess maybe I can clamp it on the outside here to hold it, and run some tape along here to hold it up on this side. Tack it over here, and I can pull that tape off and finish welding it. I'm gonna go measure what I took off here with the caliper. See what gauge this is and try to find something close. Cut a piece out to match. Okay, the patch is made. I had some steel left over from a Camaro that I painted a couple of years ago. This is the piece off of it. I think it was a fender patch that I didn't use all of it. It's a couple thousandths thicker than this, but that's no problem. I can take that out with the grinder. I've got magnets holding it in flush. It's almost perfectly flush along here on every edge. This edge right here is going to be a little bit open just because I had to overlap it and couldn't cut all the way through it. So there's a little bit of that edge left. But that's fine. I can fill that in. That's going to get filled in with the weld bead anyway. But you can see under there, that's the second layer underneath the trunk frame. So I'm just going to come through here. Now that I know it fits, it'll sit flush, and we'll take it back out and grind all the E-coat off the top of it, at least around the edges. Probably a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch around each edge. I'll come back and tack it in place and take the magnets back off. Then I can do the final weld on it. Alright, the patch is welded in. Got it ground down around the perimeter where I welded it. It's sunk in a little bit here, and well, really along this line between the 2 points where it mounts. So I'm gonna have to pull this up. I've got this bolted through here just to give me a little bit of a handle. Got the trunk latched. I'm gonna pull up on this, tap it down around here because it's sunk in here. This is still flat, but it kind of sunk a little bit right there on me from the heat. So I'm gonna get that work back out flat and then put a wipe of fiberglass filler over it. Alright, I'm ready to prime this side of the car. The whole fender will get epoxy, and I'll have a little bit of overspray on the door, which is not a big deal. There's some bare metal right in here. I'll probably just cover that with the epoxy as well. And these areas down here where I went back into the metal when I DA'd the door down. I still got to wipe everything off, but it's ready to go. I've got it all masked. I'm going to take the primer up to about right here. I'm not ready to go into the roof yet. I'd like to cover all this right here, but I'm just going to wait till I get the roof ready to go and then come back down this C-pillar. I'll come up close to my plastic here with the primer now, and that way when I come down from the roof I can overlap it in this area. After I sand that and feather it in, I'll come back with the primer up here and come down into this area with the roof primer. If I come down in somewhere like this is a nice tight radius, so it's going to have to be blocked out or DA sanded to get that feather edge in it, and it's nice nice tight radius there, and it's hard to get in. So I'm going to try to leave myself a transition in here from the roof when I come down with the primer there to be able to have an open area to feather it in where it's easy to get to. I'm just going to spot the epoxy on the quarter panel. There's really not that much bare metal. I could coat the whole thing, but I didn't really mix up a lot. I don't really want to waste any where I don't need it. With this, I'm just going to go ahead and do the whole thing, because it'll end up being 80% of it if I just spot it. I'm going to go ahead and wipe it down. I'll get you set up here to watch me put the epoxy on, and then I'll let this sit overnight and come back and do the urethane primer tomorrow. Alright, that's got the epoxy done. I'm going to go mix the other primer up in the morning and get it on there. Alright, it's about 10 o'clock the next morning. I had to break the heater back out. I wouldn't put it back in storage and we had a cold snap, so we'll go ahead and get this first coat on. It flashed for about 15 minutes and I'll put 2 more. Back when it's done. Okay, this is 3 coats. Really didn't need a full 3 on the center of the door there, but after I put a 3rd coat over the bodywork area and then over the top, because this needs to be blocked in here, it had to tap some areas down. And the overlap from the fender, I might as well just go ahead and shoot that section just so I don't have a bunch of dry spray there. So I just went ahead and did the whole thing. I'm going to go ahead and get the masking pulled off, get the wheel back on it so I can get it off the jack stand. I'm going to turn it back around. I'm going to finish working on the trunk lid and get the body work done on that. And these corners where I had to add a patch, and I'll end up priming that with the roof. But that way it'll be flipped. I can finish working on that back here, have enough room to do it. It'll be flipped around. I can prime the roof and the trunk at the same time. But I got to get the wheel back on it now so I can turn it around. I'll get all this guide coated when I get ready to start blocking it out for paint, but I'm not going to put any guide coat until I get ready to do that. Go ahead and get the roof and the trunk lid primed, and then I'll guide coat pretty much the whole car.